Hi guys, it's Lisa back with another video for you for Lisa Wise Designs, and today is part 4 of our mini album series, The Best Year Ever, this one right here. And so far we've got all our base pages made and the little decorative inserts that go in the base pages. We have finished that. So I hope you're enjoying this new way for me. I know it's not new, but new way for me to make a mini album where you make your pages first and then put it in the album instead of the opposite way, making the album and decorating it in there. It'll be fun and something different. I'm going to move this out of the way. So today we're going to get started actually making the album itself, cutting the chipboard and putting this together. So if you'll join me on your cutting guide, I'm on page 11 in the middle here, and you will see all of your measurements there. So grab your 2 pieces of black chipboard, and I am using a black chipboard this time because I'm going to do something different. Again, I'm not going to be wrapping the whole cover. We're just going to be corner round in the edges, and it looks great. It really does. You cannot tell. I think it's going to be really cool looking. Of course, you know, I've already done that other sample you can see. I've got my 2 covers cut. Like I said, the dimensions are in the middle of page 11. So let's do the spine together. I've already got my length here. I just need to do my width, and the width is 2 1/4 tall. So if you cut your chipboard like this with an older trimmer with a blade that's dull, this is what I would do. I would go over, you know, I have to cut on the bottom here, at 2 1/4. All right, I'm going to hold it really good, and I'm going to bring it down so that it pushes down in here, down into, you know, where it's holding. So if I push up, you know, I'm going to have a likelihood of having a wonky cut. So I'm going to just kind of put a little pressure on it and pull it down, just like that. Now I need to really hold it if I'm going to go back up, right? Oh, there we go. So it might have gone all the way through, it might not. If it doesn't go all the way through, we'll flip it over. So see, it's just hanging on by just a tiny bit. So I'm going to flip it over. I'm just going to line that back up in the trimmer. All right, and then I'm just going to try to make sure I've got it in the same spot. Go up and down here. There we go. Now, so if you have it a little ragged, I don't know if you can see this. Mine's a little raggedy. It's okay. This is going to be covered in cardstock, but now this you need to make sure is not ragged because we're going to see the edges here. If you have a little bit ragged pieces, I would take a nail file and just make sure you get that smooth. All right, there we go. And put this away. All right, so now that we have our pieces, we're going to go over on page 12 here, and so we're going to corner round. So make sure you've got this in the right orientation here, and you're going to grab your corner rounder. Now, one of the reasons I love the We Are Memory Keepers Crop-A-Dile one, I'm not affiliated with them in any way, but it's very strong. So this chipboard is like 55 point. It's a medium weight. It's not too heavy, but it's not too light to make an album, but it's easily trimmed down by a trimmer and by a Crop-A-Dile. So I've got mine on the 1/2 inch side, and I'm going to corner round 4 edges right here. So do this just like I say. Just make sure you got it in the right orientation, and it does tell you in your paperwork what is tall and what is wide. All right, let me show you here. All right, so the 2 of them on 2 ends should be corner rounded, because what's going to happen is your book's going to be like this, and it's going to open this way. And so you're going to have straight edges in the center, and on the outside, you're going to have rounded edges there. All right, so we're going to put this away for a minute and work on the spine piece. So I'm at the bottom of page 12, and it gives you your dimensions of what you need to cut. A piece of red cardstock. This is 60-pound or 65-pound smooth red cardstock. And this was in your kit if you bought the kit. And then you also need a piece of Tyvek. And they are the exact same size. And like I said, those dimensions are at the bottom of page 12. So just go ahead and cut those out. I will mention some of you in your kit got an all white envelope. Some of you got one that's black on one side and inside it's white. Either one will work. I just had a hard time getting envelopes, right? It's so difficult right now to get product. It's so frustrating. But either one will work. We're going to work on the white side to draw. So it really doesn't matter. So I'm going to work on this one in case you have the black and white. But if you have this one that's all white, either one will do because you're not going to see it. This is just to add strength. Okay, so now that you've got that cut down, oh, and I will tell you if you're wondering how to cut this down, I just cut the flap off here to make it straight, and then I cut off this part here to make it straight. And so then you've got a part that's about, this long. And this is all you, let me turn it over so you can see it. So this is really all you need of it. You see, you've got plenty of space. So once you cut the top and bottom off, then you can rip this apart by cutting, just rip it down the middle and open it all up. And then you can cut this piece off. Or if you want to, you can just cut it this way and it opens up and then just cut it again. You're gonna have plenty of tie back for this because this is the only piece you need. And then we're gonna use a small leftover piece to do one decorative element. Okay. All right, moving on, sorry. So now we're at the top of 13. And we're going to need our tape. And I've been using 3/8 of an inch. But anything less than 1/2 of an inch will work on this. But on these bigger pieces, you could actually use bigger tape. But I've just decided not to. So we're going to add tape all along this red cardstock. So I'm going to add the tape all around the edges to make sure I've got a good stick all around my edges. And then I'm going to put a couple of pieces or a few pieces inside to get a very good stick so I don't have any warping. Okay, so I've got the tape all around the edges, just burnishing it really well. And then I put 3 strips in the center. I just don't want it to bubble up as we are putting it down on the tie back. So if you've got the black and white tie back, just make sure you're going to glue down the black to it because you want to be able to use this white side to draw on. It wouldn't hurt it to do it this way, but since we're doing some drawing, that might be frustrating, trying to see through this black. So that's why I chose to use the black one since some of you have that. Just go ahead and take all this tape liner up. All right, so we have all of our tape liner off here, as you can see. I'm just gonna make sure that I keep the white on top and I'm gonna glue down the black if you're using the white and the black. And I like to start at the bottom and kind of hold this up and out of the way. And try my best to get it lined up in the corner and going down around to the bottom. And it's never going to be perfect, but we have enough space on the sides and the top and the bottom to kind of help us out here. There we go. So see, I've got a tiny bit. You might not can see it, I'll hold it up. Just burnish it really well. Yeah, I've got a tiny bit of red showing on the side and the bottom, and that's fine. I gave us a little extra room, so when we put it together, that is not going to show. Okay, you can see a little bit of black there on the side and the bottom. We're good. All right, so now what we need to do is we're going to draw some lines so we know how to put this right in the center, and we're going to draw lines on the outside of this so we know where to put the chipboard cover pieces on. So grab your ruler, and I always recommend this really great graph ruler, I guess it is, from Tim Holtz. I'm not sure what he calls it, but it's got these markings that goes, top to bottom, left to right. It's really, really helpful, I think. So all I'm going to do is put this here, and I'm going to go down 4 lines to get me to an inch, because I want there to be an inch at the bottom. So see, I'm putting it on this big dark line here. Let me zoom in a smidge. I'm putting at the bottom of the white this really dark line, and that's going to be 1 inch. See, just like that. That's 1 inch from the bottom. And I'm going to go over about 1 1/8 inches. So I'm going to use my ruler this way. So that big dark line is 1 inch, and I'm going to go up one more little tick line, and it actually looks like tiny dashes, and that's your 1 1/8 inches. Or you can always, of course, use your ruler, mark it, and then come back and draw. There we go. Right there. Okay, so see now that's 1 1/8 inches over right here. So what we want to do is this is where our chipboard spine is going to lay, right there where those two lines meet. But we want to make some other lines to the side 1/8 of an inch away so that we know where our chipboard needs to be put here, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to move it out of the way. Since I already have this line here, I can use my ruler. Oh no, I need to turn it this way because it needs to go over here to the right. So I'm going to go over 1/8 of an inch on my ruler, which is that first dash line if you're using this type of ruler from Tim Holtz. All right, and just make a line here. All right, so this was our first line, this one, and then I went over to the left 1/8 of an inch because what I want to do is on those first two lines I drew, this spine is going to sit there, and then the next line is where the chipboard, once we put tape down, is going to go, and then we'll have that 1/8 of an inch gap, and hopefully this will help us not to have cracking in our spine. All right, so if this is here, I'm just going to hold it down, and I got a smoother line on this side, so I'm going to use that. Draw a line here, and then from that line I'm going to go over the 1/8 of an inch. And I know this might be overkill for some people, but this is actually how I do it. I like mine to be right in the center. I'm going to go back out now a little bit. There we go. Because when you can eyeball it, but when you start doing that, sometimes it kind of gets off when you start putting your spine down onto your project. So I kind of like to be, yeah, a little persnickety. So from here, we're now at the bottom of page 13. From here, we have all our lines drawn. Just cover this as much as you can with your tape. And you're going to be able to see your lines once you take the tape backing off. So once again, it's really important to get tape as close to the cut edge as possible. Just like this, and go all the way around, and then I'll just add as much tape as I think I need tape coverage in the center. Just like so. And here. So you'll have to let me know if your favorite part of making an album is the construction part, which I've said before is my mother's favorite, or if you absolutely love the decorating phase, which is my favorite. So you don't have to totally cover it in tape, but you do need lots of tape here, because this is what is holding your book together. And I'm even going to put it, over those two lines. All right. I'm not covering every single square inch, but almost. I know it's a lot of tape, but like I say, this is very important because this is really what's holding your book together. Okay. I think I used a whole roll of double-sided tape on this project. It just is what it is, right, when you're doing construction. And they run between $5 and $8 for a roll of tape. So just so you know, you do need like a whole roll probably of double-sided tape. I will come in just a little bit. There we go. Now I'm going to take all of my liner off. And like I said, if you have larger widths of tape. Feel free to use it here. If you have ½ an inch, you know, if you have 1 inch, 2 inch, whatever that you have, you wouldn't have to go through all this trouble. But I know a lot of people don't have that. They just have 1 or 2 sizes, so I did not want to use it on video. But it'll save you a little bit of time to do that. All right, come on. And sometimes when you have problems getting your tape backing off, it's because I haven't burnished well enough. There we go. So now you can see as I'm getting my liner off, you can see those pencil lines, or I actually used a Sharpie lines. Again, here we go. So back to where we started, it's now just sticky all over. So I'm going to start by putting down the spine right here in the center on those lines that we drew, the very first lines. And try to make sure I line it up well and burnish real well. Okay, then we're going to take our 2 chipboard pieces that we have here. Just going to make sure I get it all in video. So I'm going to flip this one over. I'm going to make sure that the straight edges are the ones in the center, and then the corner rounded ones are the one on the outside. If you got them mixed up, it wouldn't be the end of the world. You just corner round again on the outside. I guess it would not, it's not going to ruin your project in any way. Or you could wait and corner round afterwards. So now we're on page 14, and you can see a picture of what we're doing here. We're going to adhere the cover onto that 1/8 of an inch line away from the spine. Okay, so I'm just going to line this up, put it on that line that we drew, and we're 1/8 of an inch away from the spine piece. Same thing on this side. And some people really love having these measurements, and some people think it's, you know, it's too much and I'll just eyeball it, which that's okay too. If it doesn't make you nervous or upset, that is fine. So I'm going to start the process here. So I'm trying to keep it from cracking. So before I did the top and the bottom, I'm just going to go ahead and do a little bit of folding on this red cardstock. Just going to fold and use my fingers to go up and down where the spine meets the covers here. All right. So now you can see how it's got a little bit of lift to it, and that's kind of what you want to see. You don't want it to be totally flat with no lift, if that makes sense, because that's going to help you not have as much cracking. So I'm just going to work this a little more before I pull down on this red matte piece. Okay. So now we are middle of page 14, and all we're going to do is I'm going to start the process of putting this mat down, or the spine piece, and just slowly using my fingers, or use your bone folder, just start pulling this down. And you want it to be taut, but you don't want it to be too tight because you don't want it to crack. So I'm just kind of going as slow as I think I can and kind of going around the piece using my fingers. All right. Doing the same thing here. Just take your time. Don't pull it too tight, but you don't want it to have wrinkles either. There we go. Now, once you've committed and had it on there, so then just take your bone folder and really give it a good burnish. Okay. Then, just being really careful, I'm going to start with the right side. I'm putting my bone folder in the crevice here between the spine and the cover. I'm just going to start helping it fold. Okay, just be careful you don't push too hard and cut your paper. Believe me, I've been there when I first started making albums. I'm like, really? All right, so just go ahead and help that get started. All right, and fold, fold. Okay, and then I'm just going to give it a little push, not very much, a little push there. And then see how it's got a kind of a little bit of lift, and that's kind of what you want to see. And then I'm just going to continue to work it a little bit. like I said, I'm not going to work it too hard in this center area because I don't want it to crack or to tear. But I do want it to have a really good stick. Just like that. And now we have an album. So one reason why I'm such a stickler about those lines and everything is once you have this on here, you want this to appear straight. It might not be straight. It might not be perfectly straight, but you want it to appear straight, right? Because that's really going to stand out if not. Okay. So here we go here. Now's the time to decide if you like one side better than the other for your front. If you have an issue with the back a little bit or the front, then just decide which one. See, I have a little bit of that black tie-back showing. That's going to be my back side, and this is going to be my front. So we are going to butt up some cardstock to this and kind of cover this a little bit, but anyway, since it has a little bit of a flaw, I'm going to make that the back side. So I'm going to just make sure you should have a little bit of room between your spine piece now. So I don't have any cracking, but if you do, it's not the end of the world. If you start seeing it split or something coming through, I would use some glue that is going to dry back matte, and I would just cover it up, but I would go all the way down so that it looks like a design element and then do both sides. So it just kind of looks like it's a little bit shiny on all sides, and that'll stop it. And that's about the only way you can do it without totally covering it up. So let's put this away for now. Now we need to do the binding part for the inside right here. And this is what we're going to make. We're going to make our little 6 binding pieces here that's going to go there that will hold all our pages in our album. So we're now at the bottom of page 14. Right. And your dimensions are there in your cutting guide of how to cut this length and width and how to score it. So this is what it would look like. So just go slow, be easy, and use a piece of your black cardstock. This was 8.5 by 11, 60 pound, smooth cardstock. You're gonna have, we started out with a 1.5 inches here, and it's a little bit longer on the other side. Well, I guess it's this way. It was 1.5 inches here, and it was about 1 5/8 inches here. That's okay. We could trim off the 1/8, but it really doesn't matter. Just be careful and go exactly by the cutting guide, because 2 of them will be 1/2 inch. Then the third one, which is going to be your gusset, is 3/8 of an inch, and then 1/2 inch, 3/8 of an inch, all the way down. So I've already done the math for you, and it's already all written out here. So just go, like I say, slow. Have a good scoreboard that tells you, I don't know if you can see that. It's already got on there your 1/8, your 1/4 of an inch, your 3/8. And that's really going to come in handy because, unfortunately, just to make this work, I did have to do some 8s. All right, enough about that. Once you get that done and scored, flip it over. And I'm at the top of page 15. And now we're going to number our sections. So I am going to use a silver pen so you can see it. I'm going to skip the first large section, and then I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, right? The first 2 is going to be your binding strips, and the third one is your gusset. So every number 3 should be a little bit smaller than your 1s and 2s, and you'll see that as you go. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I feel like I'm waltzing. And you will end with a 1 and a 2. And there is a close-up picture of this at the top of page 15. So this is what it should look like. Nothing here. And 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Go all the way, and then you should end with the number 2. And then you should have it about 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches or so left over there. Easy enough, right? I've done all the math for you. In the middle of page 15, it says take your double-sided tape. Anything less than 1/2 inch will work. Just don't use 1/2 inch. Now, on all of the number 1 sections, we are going to put tape right in the center between the 2 score lines. So just try to stay away from your score lines. Just like this. All right? I'm going to do that on all the number 1s. And there's a good picture of this again on page 15. So just bear with me, and I'm going to do all my number 1s. What this is going to do, it's going to adhere all the number 1s to the number 2s, and it's going to make a binding strip. And then all the number 3s are going to be your gussets between those binding strips. Okay. Okay. Hard to talk and tape. Is that kind of like walking and chewing gum at the same time? The first time I did this, it was a little confusing. But then after you do it once or twice, it makes perfect sense, because the 1s and the 2s are going to be glued together once you fold it, and the 3s are going to be all that's left. So the next thing that I would do would be fold on all the score lines. So I'm going to flip it over to the back, and I'm just going to fold toward the center. And you see how my tape is off a little bit? If you have that, you want to push that back down in there once you take the tape liner off, or go ahead and trim it, because this is going to show in your project. And if you have a little bit of tape showing, you think it's not a big deal, but it's going to gather dust over time, because tape sticks to the first thing it encounters, right? Whether that's paper or dust or your finger or whatever it is. So it can become dusty over time if it's not going to touch anything. So just take a little bit of time and don't rush, which looks like I'm doing because I'm on video, and just fold on every score line. Okay, once you've got all your score lines worked, it should look like this. I'm going to flip it back over here, and I am at the bottom of page 15. Now I'm going to go up to the top of 16. So it says to make sure that you fold where your number 1, which has tape on it, and your number 2 is going to connect. So I'm just going to fold down right where the number 1 is and fold it on top of number 2, just like this. I'm going to take out the tape liner. Okay. And I'm going to smash number 1 right on top of number 2. And I'm just going to burnish that, okay? And then this long piece that was on the end, I'm just going to fold it backwards, like so. Burnish it, and now I can see the number 3. All right, so my little point over here that we're going to use later, the binding, is on the opposite side. So all I see right now is the number 3. So that's good. That's what I want. I'm going to do the next thing. I'm going to take the liner off of 1. I'm going to make sure I'm folding on the correct one and put number 1 on top of number 2, just like that, and then fold it backwards once again, where I can just see now I have 2 number 3s. I'm just going to keep doing that. I'll take off my liner, fold number 1 on top of number 2, and then just fold backwards. And like I say, once you've done this once or twice, it makes sense. But the first time I'd be like, what? What's happening? Until you see it. Okay, I'm going to just fold it back. I need to do some burnishing here. So see, now I've got 4 number 3s. Got a little ways to go, so take that off. Number 1 on top of 2. Just make sure in all this burnishing, if you're using your hands, you don't get a paper cut. Don't ask me how I know that either. There we go. All right, so this is what you should now have. 1, 2, 3, you got 5 number 3s. I don't see anything else except my 2 sides. And then when you flip it over, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 binding strips, and they just need to be burnished. So just when you turn it over, just start burnishing, and then just pull number 1, the first one, to the side, the second one, and the third one. You just got to work your score lines. All right, I'm just going to work them here. So now this is what you should have. Here is your binding. Isn't that cool? Love. Okay. Okay. So now we have our binding. So flip this over with the bottom of page 16. And now what we want to do, we're back on the side one with the numbers. We're just going to add tape all around the edges. So we're going to put this in our book, and this is what is going to put all of those pages that we made, January through December, is going to adhere to this. So it's a little awkward, but just push down on it and make sure you get tape all around the corner, all around the edges. And then we're going to put some in the center. Uh-oh, I'm off on my tape, that's okay. And then down here. Go ahead and burnish a little. And I'm going to go right to left. I'm going to try to make sure I get really into every spot here, since it's a little awkward with all of this score lines. There we go. So you don't have to, like I say, cover every inch, but this is the only thing holding all of that January through December booklets that we made, base pages. So I definitely want to have some good tape coverage. There we go. All right, burnish it real well, because it can't stick if you don't push it down on it, right? There we go. All right. Woo, I feel like that was a workout. So now we're at the top of 17. We're going to go back and grab our album. Make sure you've got your front, if you have a front and back. All right, and open it up. So now we're going to need pencil and ruler again. Okay. So I'm working on the right side here. My ruler, I'm going to come over 1 1/4 inch from the left side of the chipboard. So where this chipboard starts here, I'm going to come over 1 1/4. So let's see what that would be. 1 1/4 here. All right. So 1 1/4 from here to here. Make a mark. And you're going to come up 1/4 inch from the bottom here. So about 1/4 inch here on the red, on the spine. I'm going to make a mark right there. See if you can see that. All right, let me try to get it in the sunlight here. There we go. It's a little harder to see on the red. That's all I did, and you can see a really good picture of that at the top of page 17. All right, so now we're going to take this monstrosity that we made with these little 6 binding strips sticking up. We want these 6 strips, this part, to be in the center of this spine. We cannot have it go over, or it's not going to work in your book. So I did the first test run and made these lines, but double check. So just kind of look and see, okay, if I put this over on this line, am I going to be in the center, or my binding strip's going to be in the center of my spine? Just like this. I don't know if you can see. And if I pull it down to that line at the bottom, you know, am I going to be kind of in the center here? So that's kind of what I'm looking at. I'm kind of moving it around and seeing, okay, if I line these two up, am I going to be center, top and bottom? Am I going to be center with my binding strips, you know, in the center of that spine? So let me double check. So, just making sure I like where mine lands, and I think that's going to be pretty good. Just always like to double check. Okay. I think I'm going to be good. take all the liner off and just line it up. So like I said, it's sticking to me. The biggest thing that we want to do here is just you're going to make sure that you're, kind of centered top to bottom. It's not going to be the end of the world if it's off a little bit, but you do want to end the confines here of your album. And you definitely want to make sure that those 6 binding strips land inside the spine area. If not, when you put everything in here, yeah, I'm not sure what would happen with your book, but I do know it's not going to work. The book's not going to close. And if you get it close to the side, like right on the sides, I have done that by accident before, it works. But it's better to kind of get it really lined up. I'm just going to double check myself one more time. Okay, here we go. I feel like I always kind of hold my breath when doing this. Now, am I straight? Okay. So now we just have to commit at some point, right? We just kind of have to go for it. And then push this down and just gently go between every binding strip and get that glue to adhere to the spine. And work your binding strips here. Alright, so on this part, it's a little tedious, but you just have to kind of go slow and work. Now, again, now that we've got another layer here, we're going to have to close our book and open the book again. So I'm going to use my bone folder to help me right where the book opens as I'm opening it to kind of help get this started where it doesn't rip through my page or crack if it's possible. And then just start easy getting that paper to stretch and conform to the way we want it to be. So I just find if you go slow, you don't pull it too tight, don't push on it too much as you go. Just have a little patience with it. And usually you can get it to do what you want to without cracking. But not always. It just depends on the quality of the paper. And sometimes it's just going to do that anyway. Okay. Looks pretty good. Look at there. We have a book. Alright, so I did pretty good to get my binding. So here's where the spine is, right kind of in the center between. It's maybe off a hair, but it looks pretty good. So just going to keep working these binding strips because the more that they work or the easier they work, the better our pages will turn. And this is where I was saying if you had tape coming off the edges, how it was going to show. I don't think I've got any now. All right, so this is where we are here. Let's see how far we've been going. It's been about 40 minutes or so without editing. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some decorating and we're going to put our pages in here. Let me see what order I went in on this. I think I put the pages in last, right? I think that was the last thing I did. Yeah, okay. So let's start a little bit of decorating now. See how my book is not wanting to stay closed? And that's okay for now. What I like to do, see it's going to do this, it's not trained that paper yet. So what you can do is take something like a cell phone or something about that heavy, or here's a couple of my crocodiles chompers. I'm just going to lay them on top. Nothing that's going to crush it, but something that's going to just be, and just one will work. Yeah, one that's got a little bit of weight to it that holds it closed. It's going to kind of help train that paper. And I'm just going to put that to the side and let that start training. So at the middle of page 17, we're going to use a leftover piece of your tie back. And I just had this left over when I was cutting. See, it's got that little piece right here where it was part of the envelope. It was folded. But all we're going to need is something that's bigger than 8 3/4. The piece that I had is about, it's a little less than 11 inches. We're going to cut it down eventually to 8 3/4 is what I'm trying to say. So anything that you've got that's over that, because we want enough room on the ends to cut it down. And you want to have a straight edge on the bottom. Like I said, I'm in the middle of page 17, and you're going to find that washi tape that came into your kit. And we're going to be making a little decorative element to put on the front of our album. So we're going to be making this right here. Okay. So I thought this was a fun way to use some washi tape. I try to show a few different ways, or at least one different way when I make a video, because lots of people have washi tape and a lot of washi comes in kits, but a lot of people don't know how to use it. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to put a bead of glue all the way down here as I go and put washi tape all the way down, but I'm going to try to keep it level on the bottom so that I don't have to trim the bottom if it's at all possible. I'm going to start on the ends here, and see, like I said, the ends will eventually be cut off so that I can start off of it, because we're going to trim it up, and then I'm going to try my best to get this straight on the bottom here. And that's easier said than done, I know. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going. Let's put you some tape, put you some glue down, and then try and get that even here at the bottom. So let me come in just, whoop, that's a little too much, isn't it? Just a little bit. So nothing special about this. It's just, if you put straight washi tape down on your binding, it's gonna come off pretty quickly because it doesn't have a lot of stick to it. I guess that is what makes it washi tape. And you want it to be a decorative piece, and I thought this will be a way to use some of our leftover tie back too. So once I get to the end, I'm just gonna tear it with my fingers because we're going to trim this up later. Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna press it down really well into that glue. I'm gonna give that glue a little bit of time to dry, and then we're going to trim it up to 8 3/4 of an inch. So what I'm going to do is turn that to the back, just because, let me go back out, just because we don't need it. And then kind of come over just a little and give me a straight edge to work with. Okay, and throw that away. And then open this. This is the only time I use the top of my trimmer, when it's above 6 3/4. And I'm going to go over to 8 3/4 here. Right. And then trim that up. So I'm going to throw that away. So now we have an 8 3/4 of an inch piece here. So now comes the fun part. So now you just want to put this in your trimmer and line this up as best you can. It's about, how big is this? Is it a 1/2 inch? No, it's not. It's like it's between a 1/2 and 5/8. So I'm just gonna line it up in my trimmer and try to get the top of the top of this to line up. And I'm gonna get this to help me because it's very slickery. My daddy loves to use that word, slickery. And I'm gonna line it up at the bottom and line it up at the top. Get something to kind of help me keep this in place because it does like to slide around. I'm just gonna kind of double check it the best I can in my trimmer. And then just pull. There we go. Awesome. Alright, so I'm just going to put this to the side, and we're just going to keep on working. So, let me grab this. The front of your 6x8 paper pad, we're going to use these 2 little strips here. So, I have one that's open. I've already tore off the cover. So, this is what I'm going to be cutting, is this right here. And I'm at the bottom of page 17. And we need some strips at 1 1/4 wide. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off this white piece at the bottom. Let me move my trimmer up just a hair. Okay, I'm gonna cut this little white piece off, throw that away. And then I've got enough room to cut on the right side of my trimmer to 1 1/4. If you don't, then just flip it around, but you want 1 1/4 wide strip. Okay, just like that. So I'm gonna do the same on this side. I'm just gonna even it up, take off this piece, throw that away, and now I need 1 1/4 on this side. There's that, and then this real interesting piece here, just hang on to this. I think we're going to use some more of this later on, like on a tag or something. So I'm going to put that with my scraps. And look at my scraps. This is all, I took them all out of those little plastic bags since I was done with the months. Look at this. This is all I have left of all of the pattern paper that I've trimmed so far. I mean, it's just teeny tiny pieces. And this is all I have left of the 6x8. I have no 12x12 left. I have this left by the 6x8, and we're going to use every one, I think, but maybe 2 pieces to mat the inside and the outside. So, like I say, I tried to squeeze every little piece out of this. All right, so I'll put this up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these over, and I'm going to Scotch tape them together. This might be overkill too for some people, but I found this to be the best way to do it. I'm just gonna Scotch tape it together right here, flip it over. So now that I have one continuous piece, and now we need to create a strip that is 8 1/2 long. So depending on which side that you want to use, you can make that decision. But then I'm going to go out here and I'm going to say 8 1/2. Okay, just like that. Now this I'm going to put into my scraps. And all that is detailed down the bottom of 17. So now we're going into 18. And we're going to put this on the front of our album. But first of all, we need another black strip. So we're going to do this black strip and put it on there, and then we will take a break until tomorrow. So get a piece of your black cardstock. Here's all my strips that I had left over as I was making my album. So you have some bigger strips, they're like 5 inches. So keep those because we are going to make little booklets at the end of this. So don't cut into those. But then you have all these other thinner strips. So grab one of those thinner strips. And let's see what I've got left in mine when I'm done. See, this is what I had left of the red that we cut off. And I have 2 or 3 sheets left. So depending on how many you used or how many was in your kit, because we're only human, we tried to give you 52, you'll have 2 or 3 sheets of black left. And that way, if you cut wrong, you should have a little bit of extra. So this is going to be 1 1/2 inches. And I'm at the top of 18. And then it's going to be 9 3/4. And then we're going to score on 1/2 inch on each side. So instead of getting my scoreboard out, since I have a little score here, I just went up to 1/2 inch on each side and just scored that. That's why I really like one of these trimmers that has both on it when you need to do something simple like that. It just saves a little bit of time. So now you have a score line here and here. I'm going to use our tape. Put tape on both sides close to the cut edge. I'm going to fold those to the back. And this is what it's going to look like eventually on your book. Okay. And then this piece that you just made, we're going to glue straight down here in the center between the score lines and then right and left. So I thought this was a really fun way to add a lot of pattern to the front of the book and use that front piece on that 6x8 pad. And I learned this trick of using that from Brenda Berry, if any of you have ever had classes with her at May Made It. She always uses the front of a paper pack, and I had never done that until I met her. I've known her 3 or 4 years. I thought that was a genius. There we go. Love it. Love, love. Okay, now let me see. Now it tells us to mat the front, but I'm going to skip on over here, and I want to show you. I went ahead and glued this down on the front, and then I put my chipboard pieces on there. Well, I found out later as I was working that the chipboard has adhesive on the back, which I was not thinking about. So that's good. You don't have to put glue on it. But since they hang over, which here you go, you can see, since they hang over this little strip, that's not good, right? If you're trying to put it down on there and you don't want it to stick. So what I wound up having to do, so don't do like me, I was putting them on here at the front of the album. I was just using my finger and putting baby powder underneath what was showing. And anyway, it was a pain. So I'm not going to make that mistake this time. We're going to go ahead and do that together. So get your chipboard pieces out here. And what we'll do is you can put a piece of paper or anything behind it that won't stick, especially if you have some of these leftover lining pieces. You might want to use those and line around the edges, or just something that you can pull up, I guess, on the sides. But if you have any baby powder, or if you have a powder tool that you use to emboss with, anything like that is going to come in handy. So I will show you. If you have like a powder tool that looks like this that you use to emboss with, or if you have baby powder, that's going to come in handy here. So you might want to punch out everything, or just the ones you want to use. But what I did is just kind of punch them all out, and then laid out the ones I really wanted to use first, the larger ones, and then just kind of filled in from there. So I am on page 19 in the middle and at the bottom, so you can see how I laid mine out. All right, come on. Come on. Go ahead and take them all out while I'm here. There we go. Throw that away. So I used the 2 big pumpkins at the bottom, or the 3 pumpkins at the bottom, and I used the rainbow at the top here. I really wanted the Christmas tree. I put it about right here. Let me come in just a little bit so you can see it all there. And then I thought this was cute to have this little lollipoppy. That's not a lollipop, that's that's an ice cream pop. And I've always been a sucker for anything that says love or hearts, anything like that. So there's one that says love, love, love here. I thought it was fun to have a little witch's hat here. See, since I love the hearts, I kind of put that here. And I thought this was cute, little flamingo. So those were the big ones that I used. And then I kind of filled in. I took the yellow butterfly and put that there. You know, there's lots of stars and little dots and things that you can fill in pieces here, depending on which ones you want to use. So just play around. I would pick a few of the really large ones that you like suppose if you love this one, and put them down and kind of come off the sides. Fill those in first, and then come back and add the smaller ones. So I think I had a dot one in this, something like this. There's dots here and here. I don't want 2 dots. So maybe I'll use the holly here this time, like this. Yes, that is really cute. And if you have a hard time kind of seeing what I'm doing, there's better pictures, like I said, of this on page 19. So what you would do now is you would take off the backing and glue it down. And so like I say, on the sides right now, you're going to have, it's going to be tacky. So you might want to work on a piece of wax paper or some liner or something. I have got a sheet of liner that I have kept from some the back of labels that I was printing. So probably should have done that first, but that's okay. Do it like this. So hopefully my head won't get in the way too much. Well, look at there. That was fun. But you know what I'm trying to do. So now all you would do, once you kind of get this down, and you can actually use press and seal trick too, to use a piece of press and seal to move this, take all the liner off and put it back. But I'm not going to do that one. I'm going to do it this old-fashioned way. And I'm just going to make sure I'm staying away from the score line. That's the only thing I absolutely have to do. Push that down. Do the same here. So it's nice that it's sticky, but you just kind of have to think ahead, which I didn't the first time. And I'm going to do this one in the center, away from the score line. So I have to push these up a little bit here. There we go. Now, and then just keep working. I love this little ice cream. I think it is adorable. All right, Mr. Flamingo. It's funny how you can get it on there right the first time and then start saying, what was I doing? How did I have this on here? Okay, I'm going to try to get the majority of the tree on here. Okay. All right, I'm going to move you little pieces. And make sure I get these where I want them. And then I can fill in. And you can actually trim these up also. I did that, I think, the first time around. I didn't have exactly what I wanted on the center with those dots, and I just trimmed some dots out. So don't be afraid to do that too, to cut your chipboard pieces to what you want. If you only want to use a few dots or a part of a flower or a part of a word or one word out of the saying or phrase. All right, flamingo. Gosh, this reminds me of Florida so much. I guess it should, right? Either that or a zoo, because that's the only place I've ever seen them. Cute. So I've got my big ones on there now. So I'm going to go back and see if I can still make this work. So I put these a little too close together to get my butterfly in there. Oh, it'll fit right there. So put my butterfly here. All right, so this little piece of holly will fit there. And this is very personalizable. That's what I like about this. So you can go through here and choose exactly which ones that you like to fit and kind of help you pull off your theming also. All right, Mr. Flamingo, I really want him in there. Will you let me? Yes. If I squeeze it in there, it'll fit. Okay. Push. And so I usually don't use chipboard that comes in packages because chipboard adds so much bulk to a mini album, because you know you've got one piece here and on another page you have a piece here and a piece here, or if God forbid if they overlap, right, and two pages, eventually you have a pretty big buildup. And so I just don't use them because I don't want to get that alligator mouth. So that looks pretty good. I like that. And then when you fold it back, this is what it's going to look like. So now I would just flip it over and I would use some powder of some sort. All I have here is, anybody know what this looks like? Anybody remember these? Where film used to come in? I saved a handful of these when I stopped doing film and went to digital. So I keep some powder in here and just an old paintbrush. And that's all I do, is I actually just paint it on there. But you can use a powder tool like I showed you if you have one of those for embossing. Or you can just use this, and you'd be surprised how often I use this little thing. When I first made it, I thought, well, I'll probably use it once in a blue moon. But I do use it pretty often to take the stickers. Okay, there we go. Alright, so now I'm just going to move this out of the way. I'll clean that up later. I'm going to get me a tissue. There we go. Just kind of get that white dust off. Get the extra off. And I'm just going to use my hands and make sure there's no sticky left. Rub this on here, make sure there's no sticky left, because you don't want to glue down this piece since it is a like a belly band, because see, you're going to put something behind it. So easy enough. So see, now that that's been sitting on it for, I'm telling you, I am the world's worst. I am so clumsy. Now that that's been sitting on it, it's kind of, you know, sitting straight now. It's not poking up. So it's kind of relaxing the paper a little bit. So now the next step we're going to do is adhere this down. So this is where we're going to start in the next video. So it's been almost an hour, or a little more than an hour. So let's take a break, and then I am just going to leave this here and let this start relaxing some more. And then this is where we will pick up. And I will see you tomorrow in tomorrow's video, and I'll have cleaned up by then. Okay, bye everyone.